So welcome. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about pruning and why this is so important, not just for the coming crop, but for future crops. I'm going to try to prune a vine for you today and kind of walk through the steps. I've also brought our trusty companion here. This is Nova. She absolutely loves to be out in the vineyard because, you know, that keeps all the rabbits away, which I'm so scared of. Anyways, so as you can see here, we've got a vine from last year's growth. This is our Riesling. Oh, I nearly forgot completely. A little bit about safety. So as you can see, I'm wearing gloves and I've got eye protection here, and maybe the camera can kind of show you how scratched up they are. So this is from previous use in the vineyard, and you want to wear these because these things, they hurt really bad. Now today the weather isn't that bad because it's actually quite warm, so it will not hurt so much. But when it's -3, -4 Celsius and you're out here cutting these things and they accidentally whack you in the face, you're going to feel it, especially in the eyeball. So we always suggest and always make sure our staff wear the actual eye protection that they should, as well as covers for your fingers so that your hands don't hurt so much. So as you can see, a vine here, this is our Riesling again. It has grown very proficiently over the last year, so you need to prune it back. And part of the reason why pruning it back is important is because if you don't prune it back, what happens is the next year, or this year specifically, you would get nothing but green growth. Lots of green shoots, no fruit. So you have to force the vine to sort of go back in on itself a little bit. One of the key things that I always find very fascinating is how you kind of see the vine above ground is actually almost identical to what it looks like underground. And that means the root structure on this particular vine, as you can kind of see here, is actually pretty darn decent. So you've got a really strong, healthy vine here. We'll go show some pictures of some of the ones that are rather young or that are not as healthy yet, just so you can get a bit of a contrast a little bit later. But I'm going to get to pruning here. So bear with me a couple minutes. Excuse me, Nova. Thank you. So you always start from the bottom and you kind of look, okay, where do I want to cut? Because once you cut, that's it, it's gone. So you always want to try to keep in mind that you're kind of keeping a trunk established about here. We do a 2-trunk system here at King's Court. Yes, thank you, my darling. Thank you. Yes. She wants to help. She really does. So you kind of have to make a quick decision, okay, what's worth keeping and what's worth getting rid of? So I would argue that this particular trunk right here, the little bit thicker one, is the one I want to keep. And you can kind of see this is last year's wood that was this color, and this is this year's wood. So this is what's going to be producing the green shoots this coming season, as well as actually producing the grapes. So that means that this section right here gets cut off. So that eliminated a whole bunch of cutting on my part because I knew exactly what I was cutting. Yes, I know you want to help. Now, I'm just going to cut these out to make sure that there's room and that I don't actually cut anything else accidentally. And of course, as you can kind of see in this, this is tied with string, so you always have to try to cut these off from the previous year as best you can so that your wire and trellis system is maintainable. The other key thing that we do here in order to, yes, you're not going to get this one. No, this is not a chew toy. In order to minimize our fuel use on our equipment, as you can kind of see, I just threw that trunk over the other side of the vine. And we try to keep these roots, these canes, in one specific row for both sides of the actual rows. That way you minimize your impact on the environment by having to drive through and cut it and shred it. We'll get to some pictures of that a little bit later as well. So as you can see, you always have to have a clear line of sight in terms of what you're cutting to make sure you don't cut the wrong root, because if you cut the wrong one, it's gone. Okay. Now, that's the one trunk right here. I'm going to free this one up a little bit so that you can kind of see the difference. So that's this one. This one right here, we don't want to keep, but you might want to keep a spur right here. So you can see there's an eye right here. You want to zoom in on this, John? There's an eye right here. So that might actually be next year's trunk because you might cut off this entire section right here. So you want to kind of keep that in mind. Now the other thing you have to do with vines is you have to count how many buds you want. We have here a 14 buds per vine philosophy, which means that you need about 7 on this side and 7 on this side. Everything else is basically firewood. Okay, now this is a younger shoot up here, this cane in particular, and I have a lot of choices. I can take this one right here, which is a little bit thicker, and may or may not produce the desired result, or I can choose one that's a little bit thinner. Part of the reason why I'm choosing one that's a little bit thinner, and it's right at this point where our dog happened to knock the microphone, so we're going to do a quick voiceover in terms of what we were trying to explain here. As you can see, I was pointing to certain limbs and I was trying to indicate which ones we're going to be cutting off. What is very important to keep in mind here is that we're trying to build a specific trunk, and that is very important for the development of the vine and for next year's growth in terms of what you're actually going to be able to select from. And what I'm trying to explain is that the trunk is where the reserves are in the vine. And this is a very key component of the actual vine itself, almost as important as the roots as well as the shoots, because without the trunk you don't have the reserves that you need for really bad or really tough years. As you can see, I'm trimming out the branches that, or the roots that I don't want, canes I should say, that I don't want, not roots. Keeping in mind that we're trying to develop this vine for future years of production, not just this year. And so the tips that I cut off, those would never really provide fruit anyways, and they would just cause too much canopy growth and eventually plug up the vineyard and cause a lot of microclimate to occur within the vine. Now this one that I'm specifically pointing to is actually coming over from the next vine, and now I don't want to immediately cut it off, because if I do, I may have accidentally limited my choices for a possible cane for this vine, although looking at it in retrospect, it likely will not be needed, as I would be choosing a different one. Thanks for bearing with us with this canine snafu. Hopefully we can train our dog better next time. So as you can kind of see, I've kind of got my lengths here, but I have inadvertently actually damaged a very important bud here. This is the bud that would probably determine this root in the following year, but it's now damaged and will never produce anything green in the coming season. Unfortunately, that sometimes happens. It does require a bit more care and attention. I was trying to rush a little bit, I admit. So now I have, as you can see, I've got my length here, but this is actually way too long. I've probably got somewhere in the range of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 buds just on this vine. If I let all of those come up, then basically you have overtaxed this vine and it will not produce any lovely fruit. Plus, you really don't have any room to tie this when you need to in order to bring it into the trellis system. So I have to cut down to about 7 buds to make sure that I'm in the right length. Same with this one right here. And I do the same with this one as well. Just do a quick count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and say, okay, I'm going to give this one just an extra one just in case, because it is a little bit lower than the other one, in order to ensure that I have enough wood to actually tie it sufficiently. The tying, I'll just quickly demonstrate here, is basically bending the vine over and around and then down like that. This is very important because these points here will provide the shoot growth that grows up into the trellis, as you saw, what looks like a whole bunch of crazy wild forest stuff. But this is very important to do this as well. This is what produces the fruit. And this is a Riesling plant, so it will produce more fruit closer to the cane than it will to the edges. Something like a Pinot Noir will produce more fruit on the ends than it will on the inside of the actual trunk. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you prune a vine in slow motion. Thanks for watching today. My name is Roland Zimmermann. This is our channel Uncorked. We appreciate your viewing. It means a lot to us. Please drop us a like, and we look forward to your subscription and any comments you have. Don't forget that we have a special offer for new members to our wine club. You get a vine named after you. There's a whole bunch here in the row that still need to be named. We look forward to welcoming you to the winery to show you your vine. Thanks for watching.